Wall-to-wall coverage and the wire-to-wire coverage of that, of course, will happen in the afternoon here on Decision 2017. Allow me to introduce our panelists who are already here in the studio with us today. We have with us Benji Ndolo, who is the director of WAN, also a political analyst. Also, we have with us Professor George Wajackoyah, who is a political analyst, and also he is a professor teaching international law at USAU. Also an advocate and partner at George and Lydon Law Firm. We have with us also James Mureu, who is the chairman of the National Economic Diplomacy Committee from the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We have with us also Winfred Lichuma. She's the chair of the National Gender and Equality Commission. Also, we have with us Joshua Kiptoo, who is a political analyst and also a lecturer of law at the University of Nairobi. Let's just begin with that story about Cyrus and how he's embodying the spirit of devolution in this country. And this should be encouraged. This should be also a lesson for so many people in the country, especially as we're getting up towards general election. Let's begin with you, Professor Wajackoyah.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here in the studio today. What I would like to say is the election of Mr. Cyrus Omondi has really created room and hope for Kenyans that anything is possible. Tribal lines can be crossed at any time. But before I even go there, I would like to allude to the fact that my own member of parliament is the only Luo MP in Western Province, Honorable David Were. So by also seeing Cyrus crossing the line, that means that in the next 50 years, the country will be more or less of cosmopolitan society, which will be following into the footsteps of advanced nations like the United States, where tribalism, clanism, nationhood does not really matter. Yes.
Right, Benji Ndolo.
Let me just correct my brother. The language of provinces in this constitution, two major mistakes I see people make all the time: the language of provinces and central government. It is only counties and national government. Cyrus Omondi, elected in Wendani, Kiambu on Jubilee, is the Kenya we want. This thing of ethnic mobilization and groupings and balkanization of the country, where a certain zone is Jubilee, a certain zone unless you have a wiper ticket, a certain zone unless you are COD, NASA, whatever. No, that is a false dichotomy, false choice. This is the kind of thing we want. And it's not just in the spirit of devolution, Debarl. It is in the spirit of nationalism. That's absolutely the Kenya we want. Congratulations to him, and more so to the community in Wendani, Kiambu, that rose above foolishness and exercised absolute wisdom in selecting a leader with a track record on the ground, whose mom has sold fish there for 30 years, who is going to come there with an agenda for leadership, not just blinded by, you know, the visors of tribalism.
Right.
Wonderful.
Fantastic. So your name should not betray you. Mureu, yeah? No. Whenever you're applying for a job, your name should not betray you in this country.
Not at all, not at all. And for me, I think this is really a homegrown leader. I look at it like they have analyzed him, they have looked at him, and without caring where he comes from, they have identified one of their own. And who is going not there because of acquiring more power, but rather rendering services and offering homegrown solutions in an environment he has grown in. He knows the needs of the people of Wendani, and I believe he will be able to address this. I mean, we must now remove ourselves from looking at personalities and parties, because parties don't bring development in your area. It is the substance of the person who has offered themselves. What I'm seeing today and the last few days is people balkanizing around their own tribal chiefs and people without caring whether this person is going to offer anything in the next 5 years or not.
But people will argue that, yeah, if you say we focus more on personality than parties, in progressive democracies, we have them really focusing on the parties more than the personalities. No. Of course, we cannot really rule out personalities, but parties also, with their ideologies, is a big issue as well.
The person who you are electing must offer you what, or must be able to deliver what it is that you're looking for. You cannot just say, I will elect Mureu because he's a Kikuyu, he's from Central Province. I stand here as a chairman, chairman of Mombasa County, and I come from Central Province. They looked at what I'm able to do for them, and they elected me. So it is a question of not looking at, there should have been Ali or Mohammed there, but they look at me, I'm able to deliver services. That's why they elected me. Right. So we must go outside this tribal mentality.
Cocoons.
Right, let's hear from Winfred Lichuma.
Thank you, and I concur with my colleagues, and congratulations to Cyrus Omondi. But allow me to say this. As a country, we have had the Constitution, but because of the inclusion principle, we went and legislated tribal. So really, I think I want to make it clear from the beginning that as much as Cyrus Omondi has won in Jubilee, you may not be surprised that a candidate from that community will go independent and might be voted in. So let's just note, as we congratulate him, that that's where we are. Now, take, for example, the legislation in terms of representation. We meant well in Article 27, where we said inclusion of persons with disabilities, the minorities, the marginalized. So I look at Cyrus here as a minority within that community. But we went back into the law, for example, the county law representation, and we said 70% from the dominant community,
yes,
30% from the other. What do we achieve by that? And I have been trying, because I am in charge of that commission that really supports communities to come up. And when I go around and I talk to the governors, including the public service boards, people hold that rule so strictly. So you have 70 dominant, and for some of the counties, they did interpret that the 30 meant the other smaller communities within. And therefore, for example, if I'm a Kikuyu, it would be so difficult for me to get a position in Busia County, for example. So that rule of inclusivity and who is the majority versus the minority
has never been realized.
It has never been realized, and it's a creation of the law. And sometimes I wonder, did we really need to go that direction? But let's see how Cyrus fares.
So, no, just why is it so expressly in the law, and we've not even realized it until now, Joshua?
You need to put the law into perspective in this way. We have the theory and the practice of the law, and whatever the legal theories always grapple with that. We can indeed put it in legislation, as Winfred says, but when it comes to the practice, you have to be alive to the realities. Democracy is something that happens out there. It's about the people's concepts, their thoughts, and their choices. So when you talk about why we haven't implemented Debarl, it's simply because where our political atmosphere and culture is at the moment. For example, when you look at the case of Cyrus, it becomes a story because it's such a rare thing. And as she's saying, there is a possibility an independent Nini will come up and he may be voted by the community. Let me also take you even outside, apart from the case of Cyrus. There's a case for a Singishu Turbo constituency. Yes. There's a guy who I think is a lawyer. It's called Okaro. But yesterday he was leading and he was supposed to be announced by Jubilee, but all of a sudden I think it was said that they are querying the results, simply because he's won in a constituency no one anticipated him to win. And in fact, whatever allegations and talks were going that the party was not as comfortable, simply because then the dominant group within the constituency had more candidates, around 13 or so. So that tells you, when it comes to the political culture, we haven't moved yet. We haven't made that turn, but there are flickers of hope. I'll call these flickers of hope because in 2013, Mureu gave us a Kenyan Indian. In Eldoret in 2017, we've just gotten Dr. Mishra coming in. So those are flickers of hope. Junet, I think I'll call him a local. He doesn't appear to me as a foreigner, but those are flickers of hope. So Cyrus is one of them. My only concern is we are still mired in identity politics, which is across board. You can't blame us per se, because even in the West, identity politics still play a role. The only difference is, for us, identity politics is ethnicized. It's about your ethnic, like it's very easy to win an election based on ethnic undertones. I only need to show up in the same constituency, being from the dominant group, and tell the people, do we really, really lack a son? And that message sends. Even if I'm such a dimwit, I'll still win. That's it. So the reason why you would say where there's a disconnect and why the commission chaired by Winfred would have a problem and have the challenges is because the spirit of the law is right, which is captured in the letter. But have people internalized and accepted that? In fact, that is why even the struggle when it came to the representation of women and the marginalized group. I hope you saw the socio-economic audit of the Constitution done by the AG's, OAG's office, where they're even questioning the top-up mechanism that was done for the county assemblies, because according to them, they say, even though the top-up was purely to achieve their third gender role, it has ended up giving us more numbers that are unnecessary. So, in fact, that explains even why it became difficult for them to convince Parliament, for example, to take up the same. So that, in fact, that shows you, in fact, the common notion, and I think last week when we were with Benji, we argued that, where we say, when it comes to representation, and for the marginalized group, it's a question of, have the people moved on and accepted that as a reality? So that's a question. And for democracy, it's a game of numbers. You can't run away from that.
Right, we'll take a short